Hey there, and today I have, as promised, the second installment out of 7, at least, in the speakers that I heard at the National Achievers Congress 2017. Big name. This one is Wayne Gray was the name of the speaker, and he talked about real estate investing. So if that's anything you're interested in at all, I'm going to try to share what I learned from him and just a little bit about him in general, I guess. Okay, so let's get into it. So here is Mr. Wayne Gray, and if you think that picture is funny, you're right, but there's a reason for this. So first of all, let me just talk a teeny bit about the event as a whole. First, they filled the seats with some big names. Tony Robbins, Gary Vaynerchuck, and Robert Herjavec, who the previous video was on, and I'll link that to make sure you can get access to that video as well. Those are some huge names, right? If you're an entrepreneur, if you're even interested in business, you've probably heard of all of them. So, they advertised the event with those names, and then, I didn't know this, but when I showed up, there were 4 other speakers. And the 4 other speakers all had opportunities to offer, basically to sales pitches, which you can say that's good or bad. I think it makes sense for what this group was trying to do with the event. Some people were upset, though, that they came, I just wanted to come and be spoken to, and then I'm getting sold to. It's all about your attitude. So if you don't like that, cool. You avoid it next time. If you do like it, for me, I didn't buy anything, but I loved listening to how these people made their pitches, because let me just say, they were very successful overall. The tables for people signing up got completely flooded every single time, okay? So I learned a lot about selling, and some people will go away and be upset about the event. I will go away and be more educated and better at what I do because of it. So this is, of course, my opinion, but I would just say try to be one of those people who's optimistic, who sees the silver lining in things, and who takes opportunities and betters yourself for it, okay? So that's kind of how it was set up. That being said, about Wayne Gray specifically, I can't vouch for this guy because I did a little research afterwards, and I could not find anything about him online except a few people complaining about his products. And don't get me wrong, people who hate something are always more vocal than people who love something. I mean, maybe that's not always the case, but bad ratings, bad reviews, you're bound to find those somewhere. But I literally could not find a picture of this guy online, which to me says he's having some, reputation management. I know there's entire businesses around that now. And anyway, that made me a little bit skeptical, but I'll leave that for you to judge. That is not why I'm here. I am here to teach you what I learned from this guy, and if it's something that you can apply in your life, that is awesome. So, let's get going. First of all, a quote from him. He said, "Success doesn't come to you. You have to go to it." I agree. People who sit back and expect to win the lottery, that doesn't usually work. If you want to change something in your life, or if you want to be more successful, if you want to be better at something, you got to go do it. So I think that's great advice. Really quick, some of his accomplishments. And this is pretty interesting. First, he went to Liberty University and graduated with a degree in the theater arts. And then he went on to perform for 5 years. So this is quite different than your average entrepreneur, although maybe I shouldn't say that because there's a lot of performing arts people who end up running businesses of their own, right? Dance studios, music studios, whatever. But he used this very nicely to build his brand. And I'll explain what I mean. I talk a lot about building a brand around you as a person. The reason for this is that nobody can compete with you as a person because they're not you. You are you. He leveraged something that could seem completely unrelated, which is his experience in the performing arts, as a selling point in his brand. Because what his business does is it teaches, quote, regular people how to invest in real estate. Okay? So his story says, look, I was a regular person. just like you are now, but then I did this, and now I have an awesome real estate empire. All right? So always think of ways that when you're trying to accomplish something, you can leverage things in your past or just your skill set, different strengths, to position you in an advantageous place. Okay? Next, he's an investor and public speaker now. He's been doing it for 14 years, he said. And he's taught thousands of, quote, regular people to invest in real estate. All right. So that's kind of his accomplishments. Here are the takeaways. These are the golden nuggets I want to share with you. And, I've heard some of them other places as well. Maybe you have too. But, he had some really good ones in here. So let's get into it. First of all, he says people have two excuses for not investing in real estate. And, these are kind of the same excuses that people use for investing in anything or really spending money on anything. And they are, first, I don't know how, and second, I don't have enough money. So in my previous post I mentioned on Robert Herjavec's presentation, he said that the difference between the rich and poor is knowledge. So it seems that Mr. Gray's on point with number one here, which says that, if you don't know how, you can't do it. So his business is educational, and it's around showing people how they can invest in real estate and profit from it. The second one is something that, if you listen to anything I say, I talk about Robert Kiyosaki all the time, right? Rich Dad, Poor Dad. And having not enough money is right around one of the things that he stresses all the time, which is that debt can be a good thing. The rich use debt to make more money. He calls it OPM, right? Other people's money. It's much more fun to use other people's money to make money than your own money. So to I guess, highlight this other excuse and how Wayne Gray said they work around it, is that his business not only shows you how to do it, but connects you with people who can fund your first deal or multiple deals, and they take basically interest or a piece of the return, right? Okay, so next takeaway. Yes, his business teaches how and funds you. So this is a very common sales tactic, right? Here he highlights for you, these are your excuses. I know what you're thinking because I've worked with a lot of people. And here are the reasons that your excuses don't work or don't matter, or I'm going to help you work through them. Okay? So just straight up addressing the objections before anybody can say them, of course, because this is a presentation, nobody has a chance to, and then addresses them individually and shows you how you can get around them. Continuing with the takeaways. Okay, this one was pretty interesting. You've probably heard buy low and sell high, and that's kind of as old as investing, right? You're not changing anything necessarily, you're not building any value necessarily, but if you purchase something one day when it's worth $5 and then you sell it the next day when it's worth $10, you've made money. That's a good investment. However, he argues that in real estate, you can't really sell high. And the reason for this is that the indirect cost of holding onto a property for any amount of time really is, well, it's a lot. It costs a lot to own a piece of property. So this can be the difference between a profitable sale and a loss on your investment. Okay? So he says you need to buy low and sell very low. And the way that they do this is by getting wholesale pre-market prices. And how one would do that, I don't know. His business must have some awesome connections. All right, moving on to the next one. There are two general ways to invest in real estate. This is grossly generalizing, but I think it gets at the heart of two types of investments, which I have talked about before. But one is that you can flip a house, right? That means you purchase it, you potentially invest some money into it to make it nicer, to make it more valuable, and then you sell it at a higher price, hopefully just a few months later, and you make a huge return. This is equivalent to a capital gain. This is where you buy something at $5 and sell it for $10, and there's a return on that, right? The second kind of investment is my favorite. I much prefer this way of doing things because you purchase it, you get under your belt what's called an asset by Robert Kiyosaki, and then that asset generates cash flow for you. You have a property, you rent it to people, and the money just continues to come in. As long as the money coming in is greater than whatever it's costing you to own that property, usually this is a mortgage, some kind of debt, right? Then that is free money, you could say. It's generating money for you without you doing any work. Unless you're managing the property. We'll talk about that in a second. So the tax law here is really beneficial for either of these. First of all, if you make a return on flipping a house, let's say you buy it for 50 grand, you invest 20 grand more, and you sell it for 100 grand. You've just made $30,000. If you take that $30,000 and maybe some more and reinvest it in another piece of real estate, that tax, the income you initially had of $30,000 is not taxed because you've reinvested it. That's huge. However, any excess to that is taxed at a high rate, a return, basically a capital gains return, kind of. So that's the other reason that I love rental income, because rental income is taxed at one of the lowest tax rates overall. This is nothing new. People have been doing this for a long time. This is how a lot of people have become financially independent. Over time, acquire enough rental properties that the income they generate pays for all your expenses. That's a fantastic way of becoming financially independent. This leads into the next point, what I mentioned earlier about not doing any work. He talks about hiring a property manager for roughly 8 to 10% of the monthly rent to manage all the details of the property. Now, some people recommend that when you're just starting out, maybe you learn the inner workings of the rental to begin with. In general, though, I would want to learn this with a professional. I wouldn't really want to be taking stabs in the dark all by myself doing this and then getting bit really hard because I didn't know something. So, of course, we can all learn some of the basics, do our own research, but then it's great to hire a property manager and learn from them as you go. And also, if you intend to invest in multiple properties, this is kind of the only way to scale a business, right? At a certain point, you can't manage any more properties yourself. You're going to need to build a real business around it, which involves hiring people. Okay, the last point is kind of know everything before investing. That's great advice. I would love to know everything, but it's impossible. Many people stress, though, how important this is when you're dealing with real estate, because the oversights that you can make could just be absolutely catastrophic. One of my mentors, I hope this helps, because yes, you cannot know everything, but it sure is worth trying to know as much as possible. So, one of my mentors stressed 2 areas in real estate investment that could make the difference, and that is having a great electrician check out the house and having a great plumber check it out. Because these are kind of the guts of the home. First of all, it affects the value a lot if anything is off, but also it's really difficult to get into the walls and get into the plumbing and electrical and all that and fix it. So if you miss something on the initial purchase, it can be extremely expensive to fix and can completely ruin your investment. All right. With that, those are kind of the big takeaways I had from Wayne Gray. Like I said, I don't know about his products specifically. I don't know about him. But I do know there was some good stuff to be taken away from the presentation. I learned a lot, not just about real estate investing, but about selling from the stage. He did a great job. So, if you have any comments or questions about this, let me know. Please let me know. And I would love to keep talking about this Congress that I went to. So expect 5 more videos minimum. And I will see you in those other videos.